Welcome, guys, to How the Frack We Got Here, a show that takes the news and events of the week and try to make sense out of it all. I'm your host and most, Will Buchanan, and on this show, we simply are all about the facts. There are plenty of news stations out there that simply want to do anything short but inform you. Here at How the Frack We Got Here, that's all we believe in. We go up to the left, we go up to the right, we go up to the middle of independence. We go after all sides because there's more than one side of a story to everything, and you need to know it all in order to actually formulate your own opinion. And that's what we try to do here at How the Frack We Got Here. Thanks for listening, and hold on, it's gonna be fun. Welcome, guys, to How the Frack We Got Here, a show that takes the news and events of the week and try to make sense out of it all. I'm your host and most, Will Buchanan, and on this show, we simply are all about the facts. There are plenty of news stations out there that simply want to do anything short but inform you. Here at How the Frack We Got Here, that's all we believe in. We go up to the left, we go up to the right, we go up to the middle of independence. We go after all sides because there's more than one side of a story to everything, and you need to know it all in order to actually formulate your own opinion. And that's what we try to do here at How the Frack We Got Here. Thanks for listening, and hold on, it's gonna be fun.
Alright guys, today's date, July 24, 2021, and this is How the Frack We Got Here. I'm your host and most, Will Buchanan. How the Frack We Got Here. We do take the events of the week and try to make sense out of it all. Before I do get started, guys, this is a family-friendly podcast. We do try to watch our language. Sometimes words do fly, and sometimes things may be shown of a graphic nature, so viewer discretion is advised. Aside from that, welcome. So, let's go ahead and get into it. Apologize for starting late, guys. But we're still here. We're still going to, give you the news that you can use. And trust me, there's a lot of it that just screams idiocracy. Anyway, let's start with the people that are still trying to do audits.
On the 2020 presidential election continues to move along despite having found no proof of voter fraud. The man heading up the audit is now claiming that more than 70,000 mail-in ballots were cast with no record of them being sent.
I highly recommend we do the canvassing because it's the one way to know for sure whether some of the data we're seeing, if it's real problems or whether it's clerical errors. For example, we have 74,243 mail-in ballots where there is no clear record of them being sent.
All right, let's talk now with Daniel Dale. He is our fact checker. First off, anything that guy says, I treat with just a lot of skepticism, the Cyber Ninjas guy. But fact check this for us.
Well, I think even if you're not an election conspiracy theorist, you might hear this and think, well, that is weird. How did they end up with 74,000 mail-in ballots they don't have a record of being sent out? The answer, Brianna, is that didn't happen. These ballots are in-person early votes. Let me break this down as simply as possible. This county uses two early voting files that are not meant to be used for forensic audits. One of them is ballots requested by voters. One of them is ballots submitted by voters. Now, that ballots requested file stops getting updated on the last day voters can request a mail ballot, which was October 23rd this year. But the ballot submitted file keeps getting updated with those in-person votes until 10 days later. So you have thousands and thousands of in-person votes between October 24th and the day before the election where there won't be a corresponding entry on the ballots requested file. So this Mr. Logan made it sound, either intentionally or just because he didn't understand, like this is some great tens of thousands of ballots unsolved mystery. And former President Trump seized on this to claim that there were 74,000 magically appearing ballots. In fact, these ballots did not magically appear. They're legitimate in-person votes, and there's no unsolved mystery.
Yes, we can follow this under how to beat a dead horse until it's in the glue factory phase. Yes, Arizona is running its audit. Don't feel bad. Texas tried to submit a forensic audit of them, trying to sit there and say it's voter fraud. They are halfway through this by now, and there's no case of voter fraud. Let's give it up, folks. I mean, there's no other way we can say this. Even though for a lot of Trump supporters, they will lament this so much. But here is the truth. Y'all lost. There was no count of voter fraud in any state. And the smallest counts of voter fraud they actually found were conservative. Just like I talked about a month ago, a man decided to vote on behalf of his dead father, knowing he could. I mean, and getting next to nothing in penalties for it. versus a woman who was a former felon, didn't realize that she couldn't vote because she was a felon, and then they try to hit her with 5 years in prison. That's a whole nother story. But that being said, there is no voter fraud. But this is the drum that Dorito and his followers will keep beating until they believe. It's like telling a lie so many times that eventually you think people are going to sit there and go, hey, maybe we should believe something that's not true. Because let's be honest, that's how Trump did his campaigns. It's how he did his presidency. That for the simple fact of the matter, if he keeps on repeating it and he's louder than the next person, then eventually people are going to believe it. And the only ones that have believed it was his fans, or I should say his cult. But, I mean, numbers don't lie, folks. There was no count of voter fraud. There hasn't been any. This has been the safest This 2016 election was the safest election on human record. Let it go. And the simple fact of the matter is just like in Texas. When they submitted in Texas, he won Texas. And now they're wanting to do a lot of things in Texas that are stupid. But that one right there just amazed me so. A forensic audit just to make sure there's no voter fraud. It's almost like Texas. It's almost like Texas, Tennessee, Florida, Alabama, and Georgia are all having the biggest game of hold my beer. Who can outdo who? That's what it looks like. But speaking of Tennessee, imagine that you pretty much fired your COVID director. Imagine that you've pulled back all of your outreach and programs to get not only people vaccinated from COVID-19, but you removed everything regarding any vaccinations. And you're thinking this is a good idea, and then turning around still saying that you're pro-vaccine. Ladies and gentlemen, meet Governor Bill Lee, our idiot.
Insisting his administration is not against vaccines.
This comes some 10 days since the head of the state's vaccination program was fired amid an uproar over efforts to encourage teens to get vaccinated for COVID-19. News Channel 5 Chief Investigative Reporter Phil Williams was front and center for today's news conference.
The firing of the head of the state's vaccine program had become a bit of a PR problem for Tennessee's Republican governor, a PR problem that he had not attempted to address until today.
I want to say today, and I want to continue to say, that the number one tool that we have to manage COVID-19, including the Delta variant, is the vaccine.
It was Governor Bill Lee's first news conference since the firing of Dr. Michelle Fiscus and the decision to cancel any type of vaccine outreach that appeared to be aimed at kids.
Are you, in your view, being villainized for following science? How do you see this?
It was a controversy that had made national news.
The volunteer state has one of the worst vaccination rates in the country, and they aim to keep it that way because...
And the late-night talk shows.
Visit Graceland and then Mumpland. Tennessee, the last place you'll ever visit.
Our department and the leadership made the decisions that they think are in the best interest, and I fully support those decisions.
When you have advertisements like this, with a young girl with a patch on her arm, all smiling, we know how impressionable our young people are.
While conservative lawmakers had blamed health department officials, Fiscus says every one of those messages came straight out of the governor's office.
Why have you not stepped up and accepted responsibility instead of letting Department of Health career employees take the brunt of this?
Well, I'll be very clear. We should in no way be messaging to children.
Did your office approve those messages, sir?
I did not approve the messages.
What about your office, your communications team?
I can't speak. I don't know what the interaction was there.
As for how far he's willing to go to promote the COVID vaccines, the governor said there are limits.
Our role is not to coerce or require or mandate. Our government, our role, the right role of government, in my view, is to provide access to it and to encourage it.
In response, Dr. Fiscus released a statement decrying what she sees as Lee's complacency, saying he should look to Arkansas's Republican governor, who has launched an aggressive campaign to tell his residents that the COVID vaccine is their only hope for saving lives and getting back to normal. Phil Williams,
also realized that I was on mute this entire time. So I apologize. This is not going to be a very good... This podcast is going up to a very swimming start, and I apologize. But anyway, again, before I go into that about Phil Valentine, which I'll go back into again, but it just... When you do all this as Governor Lee and say you're pro-vaccine, and then you turn around and then you just decide that, oh, we are pro-vaccine, and you get called out on it, it says a lot. It says so much that your actions versus your words, that's what makes me think that Governor Bill Lee thinks that he's on a different plane. But he's a businessman. Most businessmen have always been elected governor or mayor of Tennessee. It has never worked out well. I mean, even though, like, I mean, honestly, the last good mayor we actually had was Phil Bredesen. After that, he went to governor, and then he said, look, I did my due diligence for Tennessee. I'm out. And he was actually not a bad mayor, not a bad governor. But Bill Lee is Republican. What do we expect from a businessman who literally and figuratively, the only thing that he truly works for is that his bottom line is always going up. But I didn't want to go back to Phil Valentine because, again, I was muted. I apologize. I didn't really pay attention. I know I should have. But I want to talk about these stories, again, of these people who get COVID-19 and they change their tunes once they got it. He was one of those. Phil Valentine's actually a radio conservative host here in Nashville, has his own show. He contracted COVID-19, but he wasn't a big advocate for getting the vaccine. So now, because he's now in critical care, and he's now in critical care in the hospital, battling pneumonia, but he contracted COVID-19. I love that at the end of it all, his family has this comment. Quote unquote, he is in the hospital in critical care unit breathing with assistance, but is not on a ventilator. The family said Phil would like for his listeners to know while he has never been an anti-vaxxer, he regrets not being more vehemently pro-vaccine and looks forward to being able to move vigorously advocate that position as soon as he's back on the air, which we all hope will be soon. Phil and his family would like all of you to know that he loves you and can appreciate your concern, thoughts, and prayers. And more you'll ever know, please continue to pray for his recovery and please go get vaccinated. He's never been an anti-vaxxer, but had concerns about the vaccine. Ladies and gentlemen, I cannot say this any more than I possibly can. The virus is real. Nearly 700,000 people have lost their lives to this. Please, oh please, oh please, do not wait until you're in the hospital, until you possibly need a ventilator, to suddenly realize, oh, maybe I should have got the vaccine. I mean, it's just like systemic racism and inequality. It won't happen, you will not believe it until it happens to you, for some people. And I've never understood that. Like, numbers don't lie. Facts do not lie. And at the same time, you have the vaccine, yes, you can probably, your chances of contracting the coronavirus are exponentially reduced. They are. I mean, think about physical fact of the matter. What are a lot of these cases coming from? A lot of these cases, especially with the Delta variant out there, are increasing cases not only in Tennessee but other states now. But due to low vaccination rates in states like mine and other ones, the cases are going to be high. But you guys opened the world back up. You sat there and said, oh yes, we'll open up Broadway, we'll do all this, you're not required to wear a mask if you're not vaccinated, and we're still going to go off the truth system. And yet you wonder why cases have risen in almost every one of these states with low vaccinations. You wonder. But again, I just use Mr. Phil Valentine I use him as an example. Don't wait to get in the hospital to suddenly be about pro-vaccines. Get the vaccine, guys, do all this. Well, where was all this gung-ho when you were alive and kicking? See, sometimes I think that nature gives us a warning, and then we don't heed the warning, nature's like, alright, you got warned, and they get us. I'm sorry, I got vaccinated. If you haven't got vaccinated, what are you waiting to find out? Are you rolling the dice? That's what makes me think. That's honestly makes me think, when you roll the dice in that situation, because what if this was polio? What if this was smallpox? You know, two diseases that have wiped out people, that have wiped out a lot of American lives and overseas lives. And I'm thinking to myself, imagine if the same anti-vaxxers and the people of that nature were around at the time that those came out. I wonder would have been the same. I truly do. But again, I will keep saying this: get vaccinated. Don't wait until the hospital to roll the dice on whether or not you're going to make it. Get vaccinated. But unless you want to be like Alabama governor, who at this point is dealing with, again, a new cases of the Delta variant of COVID-19, and it is amazing that for her conservative state, this is how she feels when she's asked about the new recent COVID cases.
And it doesn't get much clearer than this.
What is it going to take to get people to get shots in arms?
I don't know. You tell me. Folks supposed to have common sense. But it's time to start blaming the unvaccinated folks, not the regular folks. It's the unvaccinated folks that are letting us down.
But as a leader of the state, don't you think it's your responsibility to try and help get this situation under control?
I've done all I know how to do. I can encourage you to do something, but I can't make you take care of yourself.
Wow, that.
Wow is right. You know what? For a conservative, that is probably the most honest answer you will ever get. He's like, well, what are you gonna do? I don't know. How about what else can I do? I can't make people get vaccinated. It should be common sense. Well, as it was told by me a long time ago, common sense is not common anymore. And again, I hate to say this is part of the reap what you sow situation. Now, don't get me wrong, Governor Kay Ivey of Alabama has been trying her hardest to get it out about COVID-19 information and vaccines, concerning the fact that everything is free. That being said, guys, I've said it before, as I wear an Alabama shirt, I just realized, I know, I'm, Roll Tide. But again, it goes back to what I said about COVID-19 information. That, the simple fact of the matter is, she's absolutely right. That you cannot make a person do something because they'll always shout free will. And that's fine. You should have free will. You should have free will to do whatever you please. But the choices and consequences are ultimately upon you. Same as freedom of speech. You can say whatever it is that you want to say, but you are not absolved from the consequences of it, which is again another story which I'll show momentarily. That's going to be able to fit that quote very well. But again, the look on her face was just tiredness. She's like, I don't know what else to do aside from forcing people to get the vaccine, which I'm not saying it'll ever happen, but again, it's going to get to a point where a drastic decision is going to get made if these cases get increased. I'm just saying, it may even go back to us being right back under lockdown again. Like I said, we've only so-called, quote-unquote, opened up the world for the last couple of months. And again, cases are climbing in these states. People are still refusing to get vaccinated. We might just turn around and go right back up to being cooped up again. And trust me, you think any business right now is really outside of the restaurant and service industry, is going to go ahead and reopen their doors? Some of them have just went ahead and relegated their people to work from home just because they found out how profitable it was. But I digress. But moving right along, aside from the tired governor, I did want to point this out, like I said before, about Texas. Texas right now is winning the Hold My Beer challenge. Reason being is because Texas is saying that they've submitted a bill that they want to remove lessons regarding the civil rights movement, white supremacy, the women's suffrage, and Martin Luther King Jr. may be removed from the state's educational system because of critical race theory. They went ahead and passed a bill. Now, keep in mind, they went ahead and passed a bill. This is one of two bills I want to talk about. This, again, is surrounding critical race theory. Aside from the fact that they said the KKK, it's not a requirement, but the KKK being taught that they're morally wrong. But in this case, those bills are really being considered and passed. Keep in mind, They've already passed one. They've already passed one where it says they removed the requirement to teach the Ku Klux Klan is morally wrong. I cannot make that up. Texas Senate has passed a bill already that says public school teachers are not required to teach that the Ku Klux Klan, a white supremacy group, is morally wrong. I wish I could make this up. But again, this just goes to show you, in this video, goes to show you how much CRT is really causing a firestorm.
Across the country, school board meetings have turned into battlegrounds.
The meeting had to be paused at one point due to an outburst in the audience.
They were cursing, they were throwing things at the school board.
As parents, teachers, and administrators clash over the use of critical race theory to teach about racism.
Both my 8-year-old and my 16-year-old sons have been targets of racial hate.
And efforts to make education more equitable for all. Critical race theory is an academic framework that was created over 40 years ago to explore how America's history of racism and white supremacy is still embedded in its institutions.
Black Lives Matter!
The debate reignited during the racial reckoning that followed the death of George Floyd, flames further fanned by former President Trump before the 2020 election.
This is a Marxist doctrine, holding that America is a wicked and racist nation.
And Republican lawmakers across the country have joined the fray.
The Democratic Party had doubled down on what I consider this shameful history by replacing the racism of the past with the racism of the critical race theory.
The controversy fueled by conservative media.
This is a toxic ideology.
Fox News alone has mentioned critical race theory over 1,800 times this year, up from 132 in 2020.
Critical race theory has become a catch-all, a real boogeyman under which we can kind of lump ideas of race and racism, but also under which we can broadly censor any kind of conversation around race, around racism, around inequality, around diversity.
For students like 14-year-old Chris Johnson of Aledo, Texas, our nation's racist past is still a present reality. Earlier this year, Chris and a fellow black student were targeted by classmates who set up a slave auction on Snapchat. Screenshots from the group that initially called itself Expletive Auction show that the group pretended to auction the boys, one of them for $100 and another for $1. A week later, community members found flyers posted around town with the words "Great Sale of Slaves" written on them. Chris shared his painful story at the local school board meeting.
If you think that this has affected you and your job, just imagine how we actually feel. When will you make the changes needed to ensure all of us feel treated fairly and safe?
I spoke up to stand up for myself and every other kid in Aledo, to just show them that that's not okay and we shouldn't be treated different.
Chris wants the school district to take action to be sure this never happens again.
We're not just gonna sit back and listen to everything that they're gonna say that they're gonna change. We need to actually see them take initiative and change it.
A lot of times when we take them to exhibits, or we take them to marches, or we take them to vigils of people who've been wrongfully murdered, we always, kind of instill in their head, it could be us. And we looked up and it was our family.
Chris's mother, Myoshi Johnson, says talking about racism and this country's history is crucial.
The division comes from not knowing, not being aware, not having someone to, tell you or teach you. When you take that away, you have instances of, teenage boys saying slave trade, slave auction, slave farm, because no one's taught them.
The superintendent of the district said in a statement to parents, "I am deeply sorry that a few of our students engaged in racial harassment of 2 of our students of color. It was totally unacceptable to all of us, and it should not have happened." The school disciplined the students involved and outlined multiple steps to address the problem in the community.
It is a responsibility of our education system to include the entire story.
But Texas is now one of at least 26 states that have proposed or passed laws restricting or banning classroom discussions of concepts relating to race and racism that Republican lawmakers say are divisive.
When you look at these states that have banned a critical race theory, they're banning the study of race and racism in America, and they are banning anything that essentially upsets this idea that America is this perfect, united place.
You need to be arrested!
But perhaps nowhere else has the issue of race in education been more explosive than Loudoun County, Virginia.
No! Hey, John, please don't resist.
Patty Minders and her husband have a blended family of 6 boys. 3 went to school in Loudoun.
We're here because we care. We care about our children.
She's now on the front lines fighting the steps the district is making to address inequality in its schools.
I love the school system here. There was so much emphasis on preparing these students for college or life. And over the last 2 years, I have seen a change in the curriculum here.
What's changed?
The political ideology is what's changing the curriculum. Instead of focusing on math and science and English, they are putting a little extra political ideology into the curriculum.
That change began in 2019 after elementary school students were told to pretend to be runaway slaves in a PE class and escape to freedom through an obstacle course. The school district apologized, saying it trivializes something that is important. There was an error made here. Slavery is not a game. The NAACP filed a complaint triggering an investigation, which prompted the district to create a comprehensive equity plan and the action plan to combat systemic racism, which included creating equity ambassadors and allowing for anonymous reporting of bias incidents.
I'm here to do the best that I can for students. My students are telling me that they're having racially charged incidents in our schools, and that tells me I need to do something about that.
Shame on you!
But those changes led to an explosion of anger and legal action. Minders and 4 other plaintiffs are suing the school board, claiming the district expects students to speak, act, and think in line with a particular ideology. Any dissent from that ideology can be labeled as bias and anonymously reported to the speech police. And in the name of dismantling systemic racism, LCPS has implemented explicit racial distinctions between its students.
Yeah, our lawsuit is based on 2 fundamental promises of the Constitution, that all of us have a right to free speech, including our students, and that all of us have a right to equal treatment under the law.
The school board says it doesn't comment on pending litigation.
Do you think this is something that Loudoun County Public Schools, the adults, the administrators, the school board needed to address?
We need to address race. What we need to do is include all races, not just exclude others.
Loudoun was one of the last counties in the nation to desegregate its schools. Many believe the legacy of that is still apparent. Last year, the school board apologized to the Black community of Loudoun County for decades of unequal treatment.
Loudoun County has not had its reckoning. I would love to tell you about all the wonderful things in Loudoun County, but we need to address the systemic racism that those of us who are white, unfortunately, haven't seen.
Teacher Andrea Weiskopf believes Loudoun County schools should do more to combat racism.
When you say that Loudoun County hasn't had its reckoning, what are you talking about?
People like to think the civil rights movement is done, but we need to remember this started in 1619, and Loudoun was built with enslaved labor. In the 1970s, there was one public swimming pool in Leesburg, and rather than integrate the swimming pool, it was filled in with concrete.
Eating glass! Let's go!
Back in Texas, Chris and his mother are celebrating Juneteenth, honoring their ancestors and their part in American history. Those stories now harder to learn in his school.
I want to see more cultural teachings in the classrooms and just everyone on an even playing field, not people be better than other people.
Like, we should be celebrating every ethnicity and culture that decides to move out here. And that not only starts in our community and acknowledging them and learning from them, but it also includes our schools.
Now think about that for a second. That alone should tell you everything. Especially the white woman's response when he sat there and when the journalist asked her flat out, well, do you think that Loudoun County has a racist problem? She goes, well, of course we should always discuss race, but we should always include all races. That is the woman that will scream all lives matter when you hear Black Lives Matter. I'm just going to be honest with you. And again, it's amazing. And I don't put this on all white people, but it's amazing how some white people are so blinded because, again, we can go down the many reasons why they're quote unquote blind. While educators, mostly white educators, are like, yeah, there's a problem. We need to teach this. We need to do this. There's nothing wrong with CRT. I have been saying that for the longest time. And it's funny where so many people are coming around and saying this, that the simple fact of the matter, that the one thing that they're scared of is that, again, America's history is not cut and dry. America's history has a lot of dark areas. I have been saying that, dark areas of history where, again, genocides, kidnappings, murders, rapes, racial tension, black churches being burned in the South, internment camps in California when they were, against Japanese Americans. We can keep going down the list because there have been many, many atrocities in our nation's history. But the one thing about history that I love, and I had to do this with somebody, I did this with a friend the other day, that again, especially with the fact about history, here's the beautiful thing about history. If you can prove it, it's a fact. It's not fiction. It's like, for a lot of our history out there, and I have been saying this, I have another story out there that will explain history and the reason why there's so many stories out there we don't know that need to be told. In this case, I love the fact that one person out of that entire thing gets it. That was the teacher where she sat there and said, she spoke history, not only about the fact of the growing systemic racism, but even the town she lived in, where she explained the public school, the public pool there, that instead of integrating, they filled it up with concrete. Think about that for a second. I mean, we've seen stories in the South where white men have poured bleach into a pool where black people were swimming in. Think about that for a second. And you're just there and telling me that CRT isn't necessary? Again, this is the reason why we have proof, folks. But move right along, guys. Before I get too lost in this, I wanted to bring up, because they kept on saying about workers and things of that nature. I'm sorry, not workers, about words and things that you say. Well, in this case, I want to move this forward before I get to what Mississippi's trying to do the Supreme Court. But this one right here, this took the I'm going to be honest, I'm going to give a warning on this one because it is definitely, words are going to get said here. So, young viewers probably shouldn't watch this, or should watch this, because this is the world we're living in where a guy can do this. And let me just play, because the more I talk about it, the more I'm just like, how nothing happened to this man.
The house in here? Yeah, you. Those words from Tarrant City Council member Tommy Bryant. Now he's in hot water with residents and other council members.
I had a comment from the audience where someone made that comment, and I thought it'd be proper to go ahead and bring it to light as to what happened in a executive session earlier.
In that meeting, Bryan claims Mayor Wayman Newton called City Councilor Veronica Freeman the N-word, but it was Bryant's words during Monday night's council meeting that upset Freeman, and she left the meeting in tears.
Well, I understand that people have their feelings hurt with that, but think about this. Veronica's feelings were hurt very, very bad.
Some of those people upset were sitting right next to him. Councilman Tracy Threadford released a statement saying Tommy Bryant is a distraction to all the change to our city, and he needs to resign.
Oh, absolutely not. Absolutely not. I may consider running for mayor next time.
People I spoke with in the community who declined to go on camera say they wouldn't want a mayor in office who uses racial slurs. Are you a racist?
A racist? It's according to what your definition of the word racist is. What a lot of the public's definition is, I might be a racist, but according to what the true meaning of a racist is, absolutely not.
I also asked Bryant, given the backlash he's receiving, would he change how he did it?
No.
Why is that?
Because I did what needed to be done. It needed to be brought to light what kind of a person the mayor is in the city of Tarrant.
Y'all, I'm trying. Now here's my thing. You can call me anything. You can call. I'm used to being called names. I'm used to being called everything short of my own name. Hey, it's not what you're called. It's what you answer to. But white people, I'm gonna keep saying this because for some odd reason, strange reason, y'all love to take time to sit there and say things that you really shouldn't say. I don't like saying the N-word. I don't like saying it. I don't like me being called it. Simply put, that's not me. But yes, there are racial terms and slurs, and people like, well, if you know this, the ER is GA. Look, however you say it, look, that's upon you. I don't say it. I don't call my friends and family that. It's literally, I refuse to call myself a term or a derivative of a term that used to be related to racial slurs. I'm not it. People I know ain't it. Leave it at that. That being said, white people, that dude said it from a place of safety. Let me tell you something. Let me go back. Let me go back and just show you guys something here. Like, where he said it, keep in mind, where he said it was a place of safety. I count 1, 2, 3 black people. Black guy in the middle, right? And for the simple fact of the matter, I'm just trying to figure out, when this was going down, that 3 black people right there heard him sit there and say, is there a house N-word is there a house N-word here? I'm trying to figure out how the black dude didn't raise up and immediately just catch him with one. But it was just the look. It was the confidence this man had. The confidence this man had in saying this, trying to say, well, I'm just trying to bring up words. You don't say it. And white people, let this be a warning to y'all, because I keep saying, you can say whatever that you want to say. You can say whatever you want to say. You are not absolved from the consequences of it. Meaning, for the simple fact of the matter is, you say something crazy and you get handled, nature took its course. However, in that case, I'm gonna tell you how, that man is not remorseful about what he said. That man is literally pointing, that man is waving his white privilege flag. He's waving that flag so much right now, just because he not only said it and didn't get touched. And they was like, well, you're going to resign? Why should I resign? I mean, I'm not a racist. I mean, I might be a racist in the eyes of some people, but in the general term of the word, I'm not racist. You said a racist term. Racist, and D.L. Hughley said this best, racists don't want to be called anything else, but racists can be called anything else but racist. For some odd reason, they don't like the word that they associate with that matches them so much. And in this case, this man, again, should have got, I'm sorry, this is the reason why I don't go into politics. Because if one white dude got bold enough to say the N-word in my presence, I'm clocking him. I just feel like, I know this is probably not the best thing to do as an adult, but I feel like if a white person says the N-word in your presence and thinks he is safe enough to say it, he should get handled. I'm just saying. It should be upon every black person. You should be empowered just to catch him with one and just sit there and say, this is why you don't say it. I mean, I'm not, like I said, I'm not advocating violence, but I'm just telling you from me. I'm not advocating violence. I'm not sitting there saying you should do that. But I'm just saying, as a black person, when I hear a white person sit there and say something like that, I'm inclined to choose violence. They asked for it. But I'm just amazed about the level that that man was just able to say that with no problem. and got away with it unharmed. At least he was in the wrong, unless he was in front of the wrong people. But just wanted to point that out, the reason why CRT is also needed to actually avoid making more people with that kind of mindset. That also being said, I wanted to move over to Mississippi because Mississippi finally got their wish that their case for abortion and reversing Roe versus Wade will finally be heard by the Supreme Court. I told y'all this was going to happen.
Wading into the debate over abortion rights in this country. Later this year, the justices will take up a major case involving Mississippi's attempt to ban most abortions after 15 weeks of pregnancy, the most significant challenge to Roe v. Wade in a generation. Senior Washington reporter Devin Dwyer covers the Supreme Court for us and joins us now. So, Devin, why is the court taking up this issue at this particular time?
Well, Lindsay, we're witnessing now the power of the new conservative majority on the Supreme Court with Justice Amy Coney Barrett. This will be the first abortion case that all three judges appointed by Donald Trump will hear. And of course, President Trump appointed them with the express goal of overturning Roe versus Wade. You know, for years, the court has even refused to hear cases to laws like this one in Mississippi because they're plainly unconstitutional. That's what the lower courts said in this case. The Supreme Court, as you know, has consistently upheld the right that women have the right to terminate a pregnancy at before about 6 months, 24 weeks. That's that viability standard. But now the Supreme Court says that viability standard is going to be under review. That will take place sometime later this year in the fall, and it could go out the window entirely, Lindsay.
And both sides of this debate are gearing up for this. What was some of the reaction today when the decision came down?
Well, you know, Mississippi only has one active abortion clinic. They warned, of course, that this could mean the end of abortion rights in that state. More broadly, though, women's rights groups, abortion rights advocates said, quote, the alarm bells are ringing loudly because of this decision. The Center for Reproductive Rights, which tracks these sorts of major cases and laws around the country, says 20 states could immediately impose abortion bans if the court rules accordingly in this case. And Lindsay, in fact, 11 of those states have what are so-called trigger laws on the books that would put a ban in place as soon as the Supreme Court ruled. So this is really a significant moment for abortion rights in this country. Abortion opponents hailed this as something a long time coming. They celebrated this decision today. More than 2,500 abortions were performed in Mississippi in 2017, 862,000. So we're talking about a lot at stake, Lindsay.
And what do we know about public opinion on abortion rights right now? And is there anything that Congress or the White House could do?
Well, most Americans, according to our polling and other public polling, support some level of abortion rights in this country. In fact, our poll, ABC News Washington Post poll last fall found 62% believe the Supreme Court should uphold Roe versus Wade. But Democrats in the House want to put this in writing. They want it in legislation. There are bills on the table. The White House, Lindsay, today came out and said President Biden supports writing abortion rights into federal law. Of course, we know that the narrow majority, the narrow political divisions in the U.S. Senate means those proposals aren't going anywhere. And so all eyes will be on the Supreme Court later this year in this major case on abortion rights. Lindsay.
I've been saying it, folks. It was only a matter, guys, it was only a matter of time that this was going to happen. It was only a matter of time before, again, the pieces got put into place. Under Trump's administration, Moscow Turtle Mitch was able to ram into Supreme Court picks, I mean, in record fashion. He got in Brett Kavanaugh, who already had a history of sexual assault, and didn't want that to be heard in front of his congressional hearing. He also got an Amy Coney Barrett, like, days after the rest in peace Ruth Bader Ginsburg had passed. And therefore, he turned the entire conservative, he actually had the entire Supreme Court leaning to the right. And because of that, only having 3 liberal judges, and actually 1 liberal judge may be considering retirement very soon, says a lot. But again, that's the worst stage. And don't get me wrong, I have always sit there and said this. We as a nation should be pro-choice. We as a nation should be pro-choice. A woman should have a woman's rights to her body, and the choices and consequences that come with it are hers and hers alone. I mean, if a woman decides to have an abortion, that is on her. That's how it should be. It shouldn't be that we sit there and tell them, oh, well, I mean, think about this for a second. the pro-life people want is almost on the same level as treating women as breeding cows. For example, you wouldn't like a cow. I mean, it's almost like saying, okay, well, you're pregnant, you need to keep it. Not thinking the fact of the matter is they're not helping. I was like, that is the most, and honestly, as I think about it, that is the most asinine thing about pro-life people. Oh, well, you're pregnant. Well, if you're pregnant and it's conceptual life started when you found out you were pregnant, so now you have to keep it for 9 months. You have to birth it. At the same time, we're not going to help you. Even though we're telling you to keep it, we're not going to help you. That makes no sense. And I have been saying this. Take religion out of this, because no religion out there says anything about abortion, despite what Christians believe. That being said, again, it's a woman's choice. It should be a woman's choice. A woman should be allowed to, I mean, just as a woman is allowed to adopt, she's allowed to abort. Because that honestly is like the one thing that a lot of pro-life people don't want to hear is that abortion is the most responsible thing you can do in this day and age. You don't want to bring a kid into this world that you can't take care of, and adoption rates and centers, don't get me started on those. They're too busy They're too busy trying to prevent same-sex marriages, same-sex couples from adopting children. So again, I can't knock a woman that chooses abortion when she believes it's the right and responsible thing to do. And the pro-life people, I'm sorry, if you feel that strongly about children being unborn children not being protected, because that's what I mean. George Carlin to me said the best thing about pro-life people: they will defend unborn children until they're born, and then when they're born, they're on their own until they're 18, and then they can go into the armed services, and then when they come out of the armed services, they're on their own. It is amazing how they only want them for certain times and periods, but once those times and periods have passed, they could care less about you. Again, not surprised at all, especially in that case. I am just saying, from a warning standpoint, it's only going to get worse, folks. It's only going to get worse as this goes along, because some people truly believe this, and that's the crazy part. Not only transition to another story. Not only what's crazy, and I've been saying this, guys. Get used to doing a lot more cooking, or doing a lot more. Doing a lot more cooking at home, because restaurants and fast food places are definitely feeling the heat right now, but they can easily be solved.
At home, the virus and its economic impact are behind a summer of frustration. Companies are struggling to find workers, and there's a shortage of everything from furniture to menu items at Taco Bell.
The number of industries struggling to find workers right now is expanding, frustrating everyone from retail consumers to travelers who had hoped for more of a normal summer.
This is the summer that everybody needs to have a lot of patience. The very sort of uneven service levels, because organizations are struggling to get the people they need, and to get the quality of talent that they need.
With a record number of job openings, companies are going to new extremes to fill vacancies. One executive in waste management recently suggested using prisoners or work release programs to find workers. Parts of the service industry are also looking into the idea. Restaurants in Texas, Michigan, Delaware, and Ohio can now use a state-run program connecting them with people transitioning out of the criminal justice system. Meanwhile, at the airports, long lines due to a labor shortage at the TSA have contributed to a spike in violence. The head of the TSA telling Congress Tuesday that 85 TSA officers have now been assaulted since the pandemic began.
Just sadly had 2 assaults yesterday coming through one of our checkpoints. There has been some frustration over the mask mandate.
The worker shortage also having a ripple effect on product supply chains.
The Quesalupa's cheese stuffed shell is back, and we think you'll like it.
Taco Bell is warning customers that some menu items may not be available because of national ingredient shortages and delivery delays. And a lack of truckers is being blamed for a liquor shortage.
Our alcohol, our liquor, week to week, we don't know what we're going to be able to get.
Bars also desperate for workers. One brewery in New York printed help wanted signs on their beer cans.
And if you order new
Again, I have been saying this, folks. I have been saying this. It's all connected. The moment we stop raising the minimum wage, the moment we stop paying these people, because a lot of people are realizing that they are not getting paid what they should be getting paid because their paycheck isn't equal up to the rising cost of everything else. Everything goes up with your paycheck, right? So, again, what do we expect? COVID-19 has actually reduced some jobs. You didn't want to raise the minimum wage. You didn't want to pay people a monthly stimulus to actually keep them in the house and keep them taken care of. At the same time, you don't want to pay appropriately on these jobs that, of course, were filled up because people needed jobs. And at the same time, you can't get enough truckers on the road, which, again, if you ever want to be a trucker, now is a wonderful, lucrative time for you, actually, if you want to do that. But that also being said, folks, it is amazing to me that all this house of cards is all related to this. Now, imagine, I keep on saying this, imagine if the employee minimum wage was raised. Because, I mean, you see a lot of that. Excuse me, guys, I was trying to stretch for a second. But you see a lot of this, guys, where you see, paying up to $15 an hour, paying up to this, paying up to that. Imagine if the minimum wage was at least $20 an hour. You would have no problem because businesses would have to raise their wages up to $20 an hour. Actual employment would go through the roof. Applications by the thousands. I'll use this as an example. One guy who has a business, has a restaurant here in Nashville, right? Was paying his kitchen staff and everybody else starting at $10 an hour. No applications. He raised his wages. He raised the starting pay to $15 an hour. He got well over 500 of them in 1 week. 500 applications in 1 week after raising his wages to $15 an hour. People want to work, folks. It's just that people don't want to kill themselves for peanuts. And I will keep saying that because a lot of conservative-minded people believe that, hey, there's plenty of jobs out there. People don't want to work. No. What you meant to say is there are plenty of crappy jobs out there with crappy pay, and people are expected to work crappy jobs because they're available. That is the wrong mindset. You should work. I mean, there's nothing wrong with work. Everybody likes hard work. Everybody understands hard work is a way of life. They know it. They expect it. We live with it. The thing is, nobody wants to work for peanuts after an 80-hour work week and have nothing to show for it. Like I said, prices are going up on everything. Homes, utilities, bills, cars, electronics. Prices are going up all over the place. And yet the one thing that has never changed is the everyday worker's wages. I mean, CEOs have made billions. Corporations have made billions. But at the same time, you have yet to see anybody from a lower worker standpoint be better off. Again, raise the minimum wage. Not that hard. I would say that, but I'd be surprised. That also being said, before we get to our last two stories, I want to show this story again. Like I said before about history. History is a big thing for me, especially about stories that we did not know about. Like I did not know about the Wailing Wall in Detroit, and now I want to share that with you.
The wall is directly across the street from my house. I could stand in my front door or in my front living room window and I could see the wall. One question people always ask me is, do you want the wall to be torn down? No, I don't. The history of what went on, why it went on, and how we can change things, that history needs to be told. I've been here for 62 years. We moved out here in February of 1959. That's me. When we moved over here, the wall was there. We didn't know what it was. Our parents didn't tell us what it was. I don't even know if my mom and dad knew. It was kind of like the fence. It divided Burwood and Mendota. And the kids that lived on the Mendota side wanted to come to the park, so they would hop the wall. That's what the wall was to us. It was like a fence, you know, that's all.
I had a close friend that I often studied with in the library, but we had midterms coming up and my friend invited me over to his house, actually a couple of blocks from the Burwood Street, and we came across this massive wall which seemed to terminate nowhere, just went on. And he kind of smiled and said that the kids who come to the neighborhood, this is one of their initiation rituals. You climb the wall and walk it as far as you can. And I guess I got about a city block before I tripped, fell into the soft grass of a backyard, and I just looked up at him and said, this is really absurd. Why would they not have put a chain link fence up to separate neighborhoods rather than this brick wall? And he kind of changed his expression, looked down at me and said, it was to keep people like you away from people like me.
This is the Burwood Wall, part of Detroit's 8 Mile, Wyoming neighborhood. Built to separate black residents on one side and white residents on the other. A housing developer built this wall in 1941 in order to guarantee mortgage loans for white families in a new development to the west. Loans black families were denied at the time.
When the developer went to the local banks, they, of course, inquired of the FHA because they wanted their mortgage loans insured. The FHA said, you know, this new development is all well and good, but it borders an area that is considered hazardous. You would be building homes adjacent to a black community, and there's potential for racial strife. And so he went directly to the FHA and said, what if I construct a substantial 6-foot concrete wall, which would separate this hazardous area from my development? And the FHA bought it. When you see the Burwood Wall, you kind of think of a southern water fountain or a cafeteria counter. You think of an artifact that would be more associated with segregation in the South. You don't think of it in the North. But to see the construction of a segregation wall like this was an absolute slap in the face of black Detroiters, first and second generation, certainly.
My grandmother, Bernice Avery, was a remarkable woman. It was my grandmother who became the vessel, the communicator, the person who led the community revolt against the inability to have equal treatment around housing. So the 6-foot concrete wall remained on the line of the alley at the rear of Burwood. Carver Progressive Club members had been slapped in the face before, and this, though humiliating, did not faze their determination. My family, my grandparents and my great-grandparents, moved here many years ago, having migrated from the South. What they did find was that the struggle continued, and that while the restrictions in the South were very direct, the restrictions in the North may be a little more subtle, but they certainly existed. They were told that there were places where they could not go, could not live.
Bernice and other activists fought this injustice, writing letters to public officials and lobbying the government until they won access to federal loans and mortgages for the community in 1944. Because of their work, more than 1,500 black residents bought and built homes in the neighborhood. Among those were Teresa and her family.
It wasn't so much that they were making a point around integration or whether or not they cared whether or not they had a white neighbor. It was fundamentally that they should have the choice to live where they wanted to live. Her view was that as a black family, the right thing to do was to give them the opportunity to live in a home. That is just like a basic right.
And in 1948, a Supreme Court case ruled against racially restrictive housing covenants, like the ones that prevented black families from buying houses west of the wall. But as black residents began to move in on both sides of the wall, white residents fled to the nearby suburbs. In the decades since, what was once a vibrant black community was hit hard. The city saw a complex mix of challenges: factory closures, racial tensions, job loss, bankruptcy. Over time, the black middle class fled the city, and a housing crisis took its toll on 8 Mile, along with the rest of Detroit.
It's changed a lot. A lot of houses are vacant around here, in disrepair, just a lot of empty spaces, a lot of empty houses. When our family first moved out here, the majority of the people were homeowners. What I learned as being a homeowner, watching my parents and the people in this community, is that you take care of your space. I'm going to the park every day. That's what I do. I want it to remain clean. I want it to be nice. The kids always ask me if I own the park.
You got another bar, Miss Teresa?
Yeah, I got one at the house. You wanna walk over there with me? Yeah. And I just tell the kids, no, it's not mine, it's our park. So you see me picking up trash. If you see trash on the ground, or if you have trash, just go throw it away. Y'all know what to do with that trash, don't you? Do I tell them about the wall? Yes, I do. Do they listen? No. Kids aren't really interested. These kids now are something different.
While other relics of segregation, like Confederate monuments in the South, have been toppled in recent years, many here say they don't want the wall to be torn down.
I think people feel differently about this wall than they do about other symbols because, for one thing, there's a beautiful mural on the wall that depicts something positive. It depicts happiness, togetherness, joy, peace, love. Whereas other walls gave a sense of something dark and ugly. Even though the Burwood Wall has that same connotation, the mural on the wall changes your mind a little bit when you look at it.
In February, the National Park Service added the Burwood Wall to the National Register of Historic Places.
I suspect there are stories like this all over the country. And I think increasingly we have to extract their stories. We have to incorporate them into our history books. I think we have to teach kids, give them a sense of place. And you do that by letting them know what's down the block.
Last summer was more than just a reckoning. I think it was an awakening. And the wall, the Burwood Wall, is an example of how far we've come and maybe how far we still have to go.
My son has said to me quite a few times, "Ma, why don't you move?" I don't even see the sense in that. I love living here.
How you doing, baby? Hey, sweetie.
My level of commitment to this neighborhood, there is no way to measure it. I'm not going anywhere. There's nothing that can make me leave. I live and breathe this neighborhood. I do anything for it, anything. So.
That just goes to show you right there why history is important. I am a very big fan of history, and that was a story I did not know. And just like the guy said, how many more stories out there that we don't know about that involve redlining, that involve systemic racism, that involve the simple fact of the matter that there were really that much corruption and racism out there. And I know a lot of other people actually cover other stories like this. Dang, I can't think of his name right now to save my life. Hidden Colors, I cannot think of his name to save my life. Tariq Nasheed. Tariq Nasheed, there we go. Because he does the same thing like that too in Hidden Colors. But again, this just goes to show you guys that there is so much more out there that needs to be taught in critical. I mean, critical race theory would open the door to a lot of this stuff. But imagine hearing stories like this and a million others out there, and we would all be better for it. I'm just saying. Hey, Vaughn, what's going on, man? I know I'm starting a little bit late. I apologize. I'm starting way late, actually. But the last story I got, guys, I did want to talk about this because I think this is going to start becoming a thing in a lot of cities. That the fact that you've heard me talk about this a few times on the podcast, that mayors in certain states have tried these incentives called guaranteed income. Now, of course, this was first brought up by Andrew Yang as far as a guaranteed income, in which that, you know, you would target low-income families and give them $500, $1,000, or whatever amount you want to give them. You would give them a month, and you do without restrictions because you want to see what happens. Now, I have already covered multiple stories about guaranteed income, and I have yet to find anything negative. In doing so, a lot of mayors, especially in California, are starting to experiment with this by giving anywhere from $500 to $1,000 or more, depending on the family, depending on the mayors in each of these cities, to see if these people would benefit. I have been saying this, that as automation happens, guys, and I've been saying this for the longest time, that our job world is changing. Automation is taking over. Automation and streamlining will eliminate a lot of jobs out there that people are used to. I mean, look at this pandemic. This pandemic alone has knocked out a lot of jobs, and unfortunately, some of those jobs may never come back because businesses have learned to adapt and still produce. That's why a lot of people who work from home would probably prefer working from home now. They've seen how easy it is. They save money. They save money on gas, food, and lunches. They save money on clothing. They save, they find out that their savings on them working from home is perfect. Businesses are doing the same thing. You don't believe that a business realizes that we don't have to pay hundreds of thousands for an office space or a building when we could save that money and send everybody working from home and then, increase our bottom line? Businesses have done that a lot. So again, I am not mad about guaranteed income. I think that it's going to become a way of life, probably within the next 20 years or so. Like I said before, the job market is definitely changing. I can say that from an IT standpoint. It is definitely changing. But there's nothing wrong with guaranteed income. When you give people money to actually make their ends meet, or not even giving people money, when people actually can make people make enough money to make ends meet, their life as a whole improves. Then you can get to that little business work-life separation thing, business and life separation thing that all these corporations love to tout about but really don't care about. Once that happens, the world is an oyster, I'm just saying. But I'm looking forward to it again, just sit there and repeat that, yes, guaranteed income works. We should have been doing that since Jump Street. So, that being said, guys, I did want to get to our feel-good segment like I usually do on How the Frack We Got Here. We usually cover a lot of things that are sometimes doom and gloom, sometimes make you just want to just say humanity should have just been wiped out with the dinosaurs. But hey, it's the weekend. It's sunny. Well, at least it's sunny here in Tennessee. So, we want to leave you guys on a good note. Restore your faith in humanity a little bit, and I love stories like this when I see, and yes, I might be a little bit biased, well, sue me. I like seeing young black children succeed. And these two group of women have definitely succeeded, and I am all here for it.
Welcome back. It is time for Feel Good Friday, where we bring you a little good news heading into the weekend. And today, it's all about the debate duo making history at Harvard. Imani Stanton and Jayla Jackson are now the first black female duo to win Harvard's summer debate competition after facing off against more than 100 debaters and staying undefeated for all 10 rounds. Take a look.
They work 40 hours a week, making the NCAA billions of dollars, preventing them from getting a job to sustain themselves like other college students do. Approximately 40 to 45% of D1 and D2 students report wanting to spend more time working a job. Judge, these students want to work jobs to knowledge that the minimum wage is only a base pay. This is modern day slavery, and on Juneteenth, this is for Shabazz Napier, the UConn star senior point guard, who reports that he goes home hungry after games due to lack of money. Kyle Hendrick, who lost his basketball scholarship at Oklahoma after tearing his meniscus. This is for Brandon Finley, who after obtaining a career-ending injury was tossed to the side because he was no longer of use. Judge, if you have an ounce of empathy for the hardworking students who bring you March Madness and merch, if you believe that education is not second to entertainment, you must vote for the affirmative.
Whew, it's exhausting just watching it. I'm so happy to have Imani and Jayla joining me now, along with the founder of the Harvard Debate Council Diversity Project, Brandon Fleming. Thank you all for being here, and a huge congratulations, first of all.
Thank you.
Imani, how does it feel not only being the new champions of Harvard's annual summer debate competition, but to be the first female black duo to hold the title?
It feels far greater than I could just materialize in words, but it really feels great because I get to share the moment. It's not just a victory for myself, but it's a victory for the Harvard Diversity Project, for my partner Jayla, for Mr. Fleming, and for all the people that we worked so hard for the past year in the Harvard Diversity Project to make proud and a legacy that we continued in order and be able to be that person that a little girl can look at and say, she did what I want to do and I can follow in her footsteps. And that is just a feeling that I can't even materialize it in words.
Now, Brandon, tell us a about the Harvard Debate Council Diversity Project, and what inspired you to start that?
Yes, so the Harvard Diversity Project is a pipeline program based in Atlanta. It is designed to recruit underserved Black youth, to train them and feed them into the Harvard Debate Council's summer residency. And I was able to start this program back in 2017. And the reason why is because I believe if we identify a problem, we have a responsibility to be the solution. And so I'm so grateful that when I recognized the lack of African-American representation at Harvard, that they gave me permission to start this program to show the world what's possible when we practice educational equity.
Now, Jayla, you two went undefeated for 10 rounds. So what was that like as you went on? Did you feel like the pressure was building? Did you get more and more nervous as you went on? Or did you feel like we got this?
I think as the rounds went on, it became like a love and hate relationship with the competition. Like we were excited that we were progressing and that we were doing well in the competition. But as it went on, it got harder. We went against more and more talented teams. And so for us, the pressure increased, but also, and we tell many outlets this, that we saw it more as a blessing and not a burden. And having that mindset allowed us to do so well because we just kept good energy. Imani, supported me. I supported Imani, and just having that teamwork during the competition helped us immensely.
So what message do you both want to send to young kids who are maybe looking to get into debate?
For me, I always say, even if you are nervous, debate is an activity that builds your confidence and doesn't just sharpen your abilities as a debater, but it sharpens your ability to navigate through this world, to be able to communicate and have a great vocabulary and just has positive discourse. And you can make negative things like arguments into positive outcomes. And it's always a thing to as you can see, have a platform, because it is a majority male field and a majority not filled with minorities. So it is a place that needs to be filled with girls like us so that we have that representation in all spaces.
Similar to Imani, for those who are looking to get into debate, I highly encourage it. Even if you don't plan on being a debater in college, or you don't plan on really debating, for sport, it's still interesting to get into because debate has altered the way that I think. Things that I would just take as face value or that I would take as law, now I question everything. And doing that has allowed me to create unique and diverse perspectives about the world that are, unique to me and how I feel. It has allowed me to merge my personal and intellectual side of me. So having that intellectualism, but finding a medium that has allowed me to diversify the way in which I communicate with others, I think is one of the best skills that, it has given me.
Love that. And so before we let you go, we want to put your skills to the test. So we actually have a little debate of our own to answer the very important age-old questions: pancakes versus waffles. So Imani, you're arguing pancakes. Jayla, you've got waffles. You each get 30 seconds on the clock. And Imani, you're going to be up first with pancakes. 30 seconds on the clock. Everyone ready?
Yes.
All right. Ready, set, Imani, pancakes, go.
Pancakes are superior in 2 ways. Contention 1, health. BettyCrocker.com reports that waffles have a 5% more fat than pancakes and contain a higher percentage of sugar. Health is a scalar endeavor, meaning it needs to be prioritized in all instances. Choosing pancakes over waffle is a vote for the prioritization of health. Contention 2, accessibility. Judge waffle require families to buy an entirely separate appliance to produce. Beyond the sheer inefficiency of this, it creates a veil of inaccessibility. According to My Budget recipes, waffle makers retail for between $20 and $40. $20 and $40 for an appliance that only has one purpose. Let's compare that to the utility of a pan. The equipment to make a pancake isn't nearly as restrictive and offers much more diversity. Therefore, judge should vote pancakes.
Time. All right. Wow. So we've got health concerns in there. We've got space in my cabinet because I need an extra appliance. I'm listening, Imani. You were speaking to me there. Jayla, are you ready with your rebuttal?
I am so ready.
Okay, she's so ready. Here we go. Jayla, waffles, 30 seconds on the clock. Go.
A delight created by the 9th century Greeks prepared with a waffle iron. I ask, what allows us to name restaurant chains off of such a creation? What allows us to film the fluffy nature as Sarah feels the geometric design? My side is superior in 3 ways. Number 1, access. Waffles can be found at breakfast chains across the world. Number 2, quantity. Krusty's Belgian asserts that 1/3 of cut mix makes about 1 waffle alone. And number 3, sustainability. Waffles have been feeding humans since the 9th century. Before our high-tech devices, we have to make them now. America, for the smiles of children worldwide and the integrity of breakfast for today and tomorrow. Vote waffles.
Ooh, all right. Brandon, what do you think? You're our judge today.
I think they both win, to be honest with you. I think they are phenomenal. I mean, this is what we do. You know, we teach them to be able to apply these skills to anything, to any concept. It's not just about debate, but it's about critical thinking, communication, and it's a way of life.
Awesome. So impressive. And now I want both pancakes and waffles. So thank you guys for that. Imani, Jayla, Brandon, so great to have you guys on today. And again, congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I just like seeing my people succeed. I do. I will always, as in the words of Lisa Ray, I'm rooting for everybody black. But I just like the fact to see 2 young black women actually get on the Harvard debate team. And again, now I will say this first. I'm a pancake guy. I'm not really a waffles guy. Pancakes. I mean, pancakes is sublime. It's perfect. It is everything. Waffles are rigid, and they're being used for, you can put them along with chicken. You just need a nice little thing of pancakes. You know, depending on, you might like peanut butter pancakes, like my banana pancakes, however you feel. The only thing, every time I see waffles, I'm thinking, just go ahead and have French toast. At that point, just take it one step further. Have French toast. But pancakes, let me stop, because that's, I'm going to get the whole pancake rant. That being said, that'll do it for this podcast, guys. So I do thank you all for watching, who liked, who shared, and letting people know that I'm back. I've had a lot of people walk up to me and sit there and say that they watch the show, and I appreciate it. Just let everybody know. Spread the love, share, subscribe. It always helps me out in the long run. Before I do get out of here, I did do some shameless plugging, however. I did want to talk about my boy, Big VZA Dot. You can find him, Avon Witherspoon, on Facebook, Big VZA Dot on all socials. He actually has a couple of podcasts himself. The first one is the Smoking Trailers, every Sunday from 6:30 to 9. The Smoking Trailers podcast is a collection of trailers, of movie trailers, video game trailers that he finds interesting. Some of them are good. Some of them I'll sit there and I'll be like, well, I question your taste sometimes, but hey, he's family. You gotta love him. He also has another show called the RAF. Now, what is the RAF? It's like America's Funniest Home Videos, except done by World Star. It definitely is for the funny and adults. Definitely do not bring your kids. That's every Tuesday from 6:30 to 9 p.m. And also look for any other announcements, any other shows that he may do on his socials, Avon Witherspoon on Facebook, or Big VZA Dot everywhere else. Now, aside from yours truly, if you look at the link at the bottom, if you copy and paste that into your browser, we'll take you to my link tree for the Facebook and YouTube groups for all of my shows. How the Frack We Got Here, Get Bit, and of course the Alpha Minutes Podcast. My IG, which is right here, guys. You can definitely like, share, and subscribe as I try to put a lot of things out there. Announcements of my podcast, movies and video games that I review and things of that nature. And just share everything from a blurred type of view is what I try to do. So definitely add me there, guys. And as long as you're not a weirdo, I'll add you back. Even follow you back. Just don't be weird. That also being said, guys, my schedule still hasn't changed. We will still have our Off Limits Podcast. Although it will be pre-recorded just for posterity, will be uploaded today and also will be shared. And of course, on Sunday, we will have a very special Get Bit podcast. Although Friday, we did not have one last night. I was actually reviewing Snake Eyes, and we'll give my opinion on next Sunday. And Joe will be back to give his comic book recommendations of the week. That being said, guys, again, thank you all for watching. If you like what I did, please let me know. If you didn't like what I did, please let me know. And also at the same time, guys, the one thing I keep saying, COVID-19 is out there. If you haven't been vaccinated, what are you waiting for? There really is no excuse. We really want the death toll to stop. We're not trying to beat a high score game here. We're not trying to beat the high score in a video game. We're trying to prevent deaths, and the vaccine will definitely do that. So above all else, I beg you, I implore you, please get vaccinated. Please do not wait until the hospital to change your mind. That being said, guys, again, if you want to wear a mask, whether you're vaccinated or not. You are being safe for yourself and for others, and there's nothing wrong or weird about that. And aside from that, guys, last thing I'll say about how the Frack we got here is all about staying informed. We're not trying to change minds. We're not trying to persuade people. We are simply trying to do what news stations of old try to do, which is give you all the facts and allow you to make up your mind for yourself. We do it better as a society once we're informed. Because when we're uninformed, we accept misinformation and elect Donald Trump as a president. Well, some of us did. But when we're actually informed, we can be progressive, we can move forward, we can finally do things that should have been done a long time ago, like elect our first Madam Vice President who is black. Still hoping for Michelle Obama in 2024. That being said, guys, thank you all for watching. If you're watching this on the playback, please comment if it's live. I still want to know you guys' opinions. Aside from that, guys, take care of each other, and we'll all get through this. Peace.